been a while since I've done a video on the Thorn, and I really don't understand. When I went on a holiday to Europe, I just had great difficulty getting back to work on the boat. But that's over now, and we're going to start with the upper planks. And to do that, the first thing I need to do is to start checking all of the gun ports. And so I made up these little blocks. There are 3 different sizes on the boat. The width in the bow is 18 inches, and the center of the boat, they're all 28 inches, and at the stern of the boat, it's 24 inches wide. The gun ports are all the same height at 27 inches. You can see they each fit in the port, and that gives you a nice tight fit. It also allows you to take a square and just verify that the edge, the side, is exactly at 90 degrees to the keel. So you have the same here. And then, of course, at the bow, it's the same. I did have a repair to make here. I don't know how it got opened up bigger than all the rest, but I did have to put in a piece. Part of it will be painted over, so you won't see it at all. And I'm hoping that this little addition here you won't see. In any case, there's lots of action taking place here, so I'm quite sure that I'm the only one, and of course you, that'll know I had to put in this little addition here. Of course, to clean up these ports, I used 3 files. These 2 and this rasp. Rasp was ready to do the bulk work to get it down. And of course, each time you're coming back, checking the square, and in some cases, I'm actually trying to fit the jig inside to make sure that everything fits perfectly. And as I get close to the final edge, I'll move away from the rasp because this could damage the model quite easily. And then I go to the 2 files. One of them on the inside edge has all the files taken off of it. And that allows me to go inside and sand the bottom with no chance of sanding the side. And I can do the same thing if I'm going up and down. The other thing you need to be careful with is, of course, it's a finished model, and it's very easy for you to go down and scratch the surface of the inner planks or damage something that's there. So I put this little brass plate inside, and it's really just to protect the surface in case I make an error, that I don't damage any of the pieces that are already finished and completed on the inside. Now, once that is done, we need to install the port stops. And this is a trim that is put inside of the gun port opening. It's 1.5 inches in thickness, and it goes all around the inside of the gun port. And it allows the gun port door that when it closes shut and provides, in many cases, a waterproof joint so that if the ship is leaning, you don't get water coming in through these holes. It's painted red, and it goes all the way through, so it'll match with the planking on the inside of the model. This will give you a better feel for what it looks like, and it shows how the door was made up. Externally, it's meant to match the external look of the ship. One of the errors I made when putting the side pieces on is that where there's a slope, the outside edge of the bottom stop, you're going to have to take a little bit off of it to get it to follow the same direction as the slope here of the piece. Otherwise, the top will be too close to the edge to get the 2-inch spacing. So I'm doing that on each one, literally just pulling that so I come back to 2 inches on the side. There are 20 stops that we need to install on the gun port openings. And David says you're going to do the bottom and the top first. And these are really the easiest ones to do. And then we put the sides in. And the sides are a little more difficult because there's a bit of a curve on the side, and the stop has to reflect that curve so that when the gun port door fits in, it will fit in as though this was a solid piece right across. So we need to follow the line or the shape of the hull at this place. While I'm here, I've taken out the pre-act because this is really the ideal saw for it. We're cutting, the stop pieces are only 1.5 inches, so they're very thin. So I have a very thin blade, and it's ideal for this. And to have an extra hand, I have this little on-off switch, which is really very useful. There are 3 ways that you can do the measurements. This is a little brass caliper that I have. Sometimes it's quite useful for doing internal measurements. So you could just come here and work out the internal measurement. In this case, you may not get it absolutely accurate. The better tool, if you're going to do that, is a proper caliper, which allows you the internal measurement here, and then you can simply put this on the board and mark the piece off. Or the very sophisticated way that I tend to do it, which is to put the board on it, put a mark, and go on the pre-axle and cut it. This is the stock that we have. So again, we'll just do an initial cut. Take the measurement. And cut the first one. They tend to fly, so you need to be careful. If you want a very nice square fit, you may find that you don't have a clean square line. So again, I take a square file and just make sure I've got a nice clean square line all across. Fit it in, and that's perfect. So now there are a few other little tools I've made up. I'll take pictures of these to show you. These are stops that are 2-inch deep, and what that allows me to do is to place it up on the edge of the hull, and that allows the depth to be set from the outside of the hull to the inside edge of the stop. I also have a different one. This one is on the edge. So again, for nice big spaces like this, I can just put it on, you press it in. So there's no measurement required. I've got it done perfectly. The reason I have a smaller one is that sometimes it's very difficult to get inside places like this. And so that's what this one is for, that it'll get in here, whereas this one will get in the way and touch the molding. In the case of the top, this one will fit in here perfectly. So it's really just for this inside edge corner. Another interesting tool is this little angle unit. I had made this up some time ago to do take interesting angles off the model. And what's nice about this is that you can fit it inside here, and what this will do is give you the exact angle that the stop has when fitting on the model. And then you carefully take it out and set that angle on the pre-act or on the desktop sander and cut those angles, and that will really make your work a lot easier. Very simple to make it up. It's just 2 little pieces of wood and a rivet. In this case, this is a screw off of one of my glasses that just worked perfectly with some CA to lock it in place. And it works fantastically. Now you see some of them are a little oversized, so I'm not going to take you through the details of me fitting them. I prefer them a little oversized so that I can slowly take them down, and I take the extra little bit off on the Jim Burns desktop sander. Once the bottoms are cut, we can use the same measurement to cut the top pieces. That's assuming, of course, that the gun ports are square. Simply take the piece that's been measured and fitted, put it on the pray arc, and cut out a sister piece. Again, a small tip, when you're cutting these things off, you can easily, it might break the wrong way. So I tend to not try and cut too much off, leave some to make sure I know the way the grain is running. And then I take the Proxxon pen sander and take it down. Because you want to take these all down when they're separate. You don't want the four of them together because it then becomes very difficult. Here's a perfect example of putting the side in, and then it becomes very difficult to use a chisel and cut that down. It's much easier to cut it down when it's like this. And now we have a more challenging piece, which is to fit the side stops. And this is where this little tool comes in. I would simply put it on the inside, take the measurement, and that's going to give us the angle because the side of the ship is sloping inwards, so it's not a 90 degree. And then put that on the saw and cut it out. To make the recess, I've found that it's actually easier to fit the top on the bottom and then just use a utility knife or a chisel to cut the recess so it matches perfectly with the top and bottom stop. I'm finding that I have to check the angle on both the bottom and on the top because they're quite different. The top is almost flat and the bottom has quite a significant angle because of the slope of the sides. So we have 19.5 to get going, so I guess I should get started. But I'm going to do it on each individual one. In terms of the painting, I have this Tamiya masking tape, which is really fantastic. It sticks on anything and there's almost no bleed on it. And it's quite easy to do. Up here is going to be a little bit problematic. So I'm going to try and do this freehand, but certainly at the bottom line, I'm going to use the tape and get a nice clean line. In terms of the paint, I'm continuing to use cadmium scarlet, which is what I've used on the model from the very beginning. And the paintbrush I'm using is a very fine tip. Nothing special about them. I bought them on Amazon. It was interesting that I was speaking to David Anshel a few months ago when we were talking about painting the stern. And he says that he has much more control with a large paintbrush that has a very fine tip, that the large paintbrush gives him that fine look that he doesn't always get from a very fine tip paintbrush. So here's the first side that's completed and really came out very good. A few little errors which I can gently sand off, much less than I thought. So now we switch over and go and do the other side. That's it for today's video. These are now all complete, and we'll go and start looking at the inner planking in the next video. And I'm sorry it's been so long, but I promise to try and stick and get this model all finished. So we see you next week, and remember, as always, keep modeling.